Greetings everyone, this is Steam Team RWK, CC Trainer Ling, here to bring you another episode review from Season 5 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled, Blinded by Science. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. The episode begins with Lisa trying to decide what to use in her keynote research presentation at GeniusCon. When Lincoln takes her to Flip's food and fuel, she sees Flip has some rather abnormal conditions for that of a human and asks him to be her research subject. After running some tests, Lisa puts Flip on full display at the convention and is approached by Dr. Lianis from Incognito Laboratories. The doctor wants to run further research on Flip in the hopes of bringing about a new field of science. Flip agrees and is taken away. When Lisa tries to look up information on the doctor in her laboratory, her computer breaks down. Suddenly, a rat enters her bedroom and it has a note from Flip saying he needs help. Lisa finds the lab and sees Flip is being treated the same way Lisa had treated him as a research subject. She confronts Dr. Lianis and finds out Flip is being prepped for an experiment to determine how long a human can survive in outer space without a spacesuit. With help from Lincoln and Clyde, Lisa sneaks into the lab and manages to free Flip from his box. She's stopped by Dr. Lianis and her security guards, but when they're about to get caught, Flip throws his emergency Flippy on the ground, causing the three pursuers to fall into the rocket intended for Flip and are accidentally launched into the sky. Lisa and Flip, along with Lincoln and Clyde, celebrate a successful mission. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. As much as some fans will say this episode was really good, I hold quite a different opinion. It was sort of a downer for this season, but not as much as Kernel of Truth. But in an effort to not make this review all doom and gloom, let's have a little fun with it, as we say,
She blinded me with science!
Now, when it comes to Lisa and her experiments from this episode and in the past, she finds a lot of them to be poetry in motion, and rightly so. But then she turned her tender eyes to Flip, who turns out to be anything but a normal human, whatever that means. This is where the episode did a character like him no justice. Granted, Flip isn't as deep as any ocean when it comes to development, and certainly not as sweet as any harmony when it comes to how his character is used. However, compared to previous seasons, this episode depicted him in a manner that was never elaborated on or even slightly hinted at, and suddenly he's, well, a freak of nature. To be fair, just because we didn't know what kind of freak he truly was back then, doesn't mean he wasn't a freak at the time. We may not have been able to see his fish gills, but we have seen on at least 2 occasions he only has one butt, and that's it. That's where I question the validity of why he was the one to be the focus of the plot. A wild unknown animal would have made more sense. Perhaps a random one-off character we've never seen before would have been passable. But for Flip, not so much. Still, the episode played true to Lisa's science-driven character and thought Flip would be the perfect subject to be hit with technology. Now we come to Dr. Lianis, named after the Swedish physician Carl Lianis, the last name making sense given how Lisa coined a new scientific name for Flip. At first glance we say, "Good heavens, Dr. Lianis, you're beautiful!" But later we can smell the chemicals of what she's really all about with her appropriately named Incognito Laboratories. We never do find out what happened to her after the rocket launch, so we can only assume she, yeah. The rescue mission into the lab with Lincoln and Clyde was okay, but not something to write home about. Not many exciting moments came from this episode, but hey, at least our child genius didn't fail us in biology, right? Overall, this episode was not as good as I had hoped, and it's a real disappointment too because Lisa never really had an episode I would rate below an 8 out of 10 up to this point in the series. When I saw the direction the episode was taking with her character, naturally I thought, I don't believe it! There she goes again! She's all tidied up for her presentation, and when she meets a shady doctor, she can't find anything on her. Forget about the tubes and wires and careful notes. There were no antiquated notions on Dr. Lianis. In the end, Lisa does learn her lesson about how her scientific ambitions have consequences on others, and how said actions make her feel guilty for having pursued them for selfish purposes. In the past, she has viewed her family and friends as test subjects, and her experiments with them, like we see in House of Lies and Friend or Foe, among other episodes, can lead to unintended consequences of pain, be it physical or emotional. It makes sense for her to feel guilty about her actions in those episodes, but there's a difference in this episode compared to the others. Lisa's experiments on Flip didn't appear to cause any harm, and remember, Flip agreed to do them. She may have regarded him as an abnormal human, but he was still a human all the same, and wasn't going to be experimented on like an animal the way Dr. Leannis was doing. I can understand her guilt in this scenario since she practically begged Flip to go with the doctor in the name of science. And maybe Flip didn't know he would be forced into a box and be tested like an actual guinea pig on a giant wheel. Even so, it wasn't enough to save the plot. And finally, no matter how much of a defense anyone can make, using an established character like Flip as the test subject was not one of the brightest ideas. It could have been an unnamed animal or a random human character, but the writers went with Flip. By no means was he ever an amazing character. He definitely wasn't normal in past appearances, but for this episode to present him as far less than what could be considered normal at this stage of the game was just uncouth and not in good taste. It was worth a few laughs, but still not salvageable for the episode as a whole. With that said, I give Blinded by Science a 7.6 out of 10. Well, folks, that concludes my review of Blinded by Science.
Science!
It wasn't Lisa's best episode, but for better or for worse, our little scientist may have a change of heart in the future in how she treats people the next time she wants to use them as test subjects. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. So what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is Steam Team ReadUK, CC Trainer Ling, signing off.
She blinded me with science!
Peace out, home slices.